Hello everyone, welcome to Java Developers. In the previous video, we have created a project called Todo Application. We have created the REST APIs for creating, updating, deleting, and fetching the data from the database. So in this video, we'll be adding the test cases for those functionalities. If you haven't watched the first video, I will put the video link in the description. Okay, so let's start with the pom.xml. So we want to use the Astro database for the testing DB. So we have already included the dependency here. Okay. So before creating the test classes, we need to create a class that will include both the input and the output details. Okay. So let's create it. Test data. So this test data class will contain 3 static methods. So those 3 static methods will return todo request, todo response, and list of todo responses. The reason why we are creating is we want to use this class in every test classes because it will require the both todo request and todo response object. So we do not want to include those methods in those test classes. It will get duplicated. Instead, we want to keep these methods separately in a separate class. So that is the reason we are creating it. It will return todo request, get todo request. Okay, let's create an object. Todo request dot set name learn JUnit. Todo request dot set category as programming. Todo request dot set is complete is false. Okay, return the todo request. So let's copy this method and create for the todo response. Okay, let's copy this todo response, update the method name and the class. So let's refactor the object name. Okay, todo response dot set id as 1L because it is a long type. So let's include the last method. So public static list of todo response, get todo responses. Okay, so let's import the list interface. Okay, so return arrays dot as list. Okay, so here we will include 3 objects of todo response. Okay, so new todo response 1L learn AWS cloud, category as cloud, mention as false. Take comma, copy and paste 2 times. Let's update the content. Learn Azure cloud, learn GCP cloud. That's it. Okay, so let's close this class. Let's go to controller class. So let's begin with the controller. Let's right click on generate, click on test, click OK. So it will create the test class for the controller. If you see, we create a package called controller. It includes the controller class here. So this is it. Remove that import, make it a public, add a Spring Boot test web environment equal to Spring Boot test dot web environment dot random port. Okay, let's include auto configure mock MVC. Okay, so private mock MVC. Let's auto configure it. That's auto wired. Okay, so by including this auto configure mock MVC annotation, we are automatically configuring the mock MVC object. Okay, so we are adding the at auto wired here. If you remove this, if you remove the second annotation, it will throw an exception. Okay, so let's include object mapper. Okay, if you go to todo controller, so we have a todo service. We are using this todo service object in every method, and we want to mock this todo service in the test class. Okay, so private todo service in annotate as mock bean. Okay, so before starting the test case, we will be creating the resource directory for the test, and we will be including the application.yml file for configuring the H2 database. So let's do that. Directory resources include application.yml. Okay. Spring.data source URL. Okay, username as test, password as test, URL as jdbc h2, memory as mem, and test. Okay, so let's include the test case. So we'll be creating the first test case for saving the todo. Okay, so let's include public void. The method name starts with a test and say todo. Throws exception. Okay, if you go to the post mapping method, so we are passing the todo request as request body and sending the todo request to save todo method of todo service and returning the todo response. Okay, so in our test class we want to tell the mock bean of todo service whenever this method has been called, we'll be sending our todo request, and we want our own version of todo response as well in return. So we do not want to separately create a new instance for todo response. Instead, we want our own version of it to todo response. Let's go to test class. So let's include both todo request and todo response. Todo response. Okay, so use the when method, which is a static method from Mockito framework. Okay, include todo service dot save todo, put the todo request, then returns our own version of todo response. Okay, now let's include the request builder in MVC result. So request builder mock MVC request builders dot post. Okay, so we need to include the URL template here, the URL mapping. Let's go to todo controller, copy this and put it here. Okay, the content type will be media type dot application JSON, and the accept will be application JSON. Okay, so we need to pass the request body. So we use the content, so it includes either byte array or string, but we have todo request. So in this case, we will be using mapper to convert todo request to either byte array or string. So let's do for string, write value as string todo request. Okay, so let's create the MVC result. Let's use the mock MVC dot perform. In the perform method, it requests the request builder, which we already have it. Okay, and expert, you can see expert as matcher, result matcher. Okay, so in this case, we will be using the inherited classes of result matcher. It is an interface. Okay, so just put the JSON path, which is a static method of mock MVC result matches. Okay, let's add an expression $.name. Okay, and use the matches is, so we want to test the value of name. It should be learn JUnit. Okay, let's test the status, which will be the static method again, is 201. So in this case it should be 201, not a 200. Okay, because we are creating the todo, and return it. Okay, so let's finalize all the details which are provided. We have included the auto configure mock MVC, which is required for mock MVC. We want to use the random port. We have used the mock bean for the todo service class, and we have included both the request builder and the MVC result. Okay, and we have also included the application YML for the Hadoop database configuration. Okay, let's go here. Let's run this test case. Okay, so we can see the test case got passed. Okay, so let's create one more test case for the controller class. So in this case, we'll be creating for finding the todo by ID. Okay, so public void test find todo by ID throws an exception. Okay, string todo ID equal to string 1. Okay, let's copy this todo response. Let's copy this whole thing. Let's modify it. So here, in this case, we'll be using find by todo ID. Add the todo ID. Okay, here it should be get slash ID. We are passing the value to the path, include this todo ID. Okay, so let's remove this line. Okay, the return type will be 200. Okay, so I think we have completed. Let's check it out. All right, so we can see the test case got passed. Okay, so this is the same pattern we have to follow for creating the test case for rest of the methods, like put mapping, delete mapping for the controller. Okay, so let's jump to service. So let's generate the test class for service. Okay, let's remove this import, include public. Okay, add the Spring Boot test alone. Okay, so if you go to todo service, we are using todo repository. Okay, so we want to mock this todo repository here. Okay, so let's go here, private todo repository at mock. Okay, so let's include the object mapper as well. Okay, so let's create a test case. Let's create a test case for saving the todo object. Test save todo. Okay, so if we go to todo service, so this is the method which we want to test it. So we are passing the todo request and we are returning the todo response. So in this case we need both todo request and todo response. Let's go here. Todo request equal to test data dot get todo request. Todo response test data dot todo response. Okay, so let's go here. So we can see we are using todo repository, and now we want to mock this todo repository with the same method. Let's go here. Let's include that. If you go to todo response, we have the ID field. Okay, we want to make sure whether it also returns the ID or not. So we have it ID. Okay, so let's mock it. Mockito.when todo repository dot save. Okay, so in this case you can directly provide the todo request, or you can also mention like any is a static method again. Use the argument matches.any, okay, which requires the todo request dot class. And return todo response. So what is the issue? I'm sorry, it should be todo dot class. And it should return todo. So let me use the object mapper. Saved todo equal to mapper dot convert value todo request, okay, dot todo dot class. Just copy this saved todo and paste it, because if you go to todo service, we are returning as a todo, right? So again we need to convert this todo into todo response. We will include the todo service. Okay, so in this case we do not want to use the @AutoWire annotation. Instead we will be using Inject Mocks. Okay, so what it means like Inject Mocks is, so we want to inject these mocks into this class. Okay, so let's use todo service dot save todo request. Okay, so return type will be todo response todo. So it will be todo response. Now I want to assert the values, the return todo response with the todo. Okay, so how we can do that? Use assertions dot assert equals, so exported comma actual. So what we have exported is save todo dot get name. So use the get name and return this response todo dot get name. Okay, if both the values are same, then we can say that it is passed. So we comes to know, okay, it is being tested correctly. Okay, so I don't think we are using this todo response. Let's just remove it. Let's run this test case. So we can see the test case has been passed. Okay, so let's include another test case. public void test find by all. So basically find all. Okay, if we go to todo service, we want to test this method. Okay, so let's go here, list of todo response. Let's import the list interface, response test data dot get todo responses. Okay, so when todo service dot find all todo, you can see it returns the list of todo responses, right? I'm sorry, so we have to use the todo repository here. When todo repository dot find all, you can see it returns the list of todo. Okay, so in this case we have todo responses. So how we can get the value? Well, let's create an empty list of todos. Okay, todo responses dot for each todo response mapper dot convert value todo response comma todo dot class. Okay, so let's enter down new array list. So let's wrap it with the todos dot add. Okay, then return todos. So in this case, you'll be using the todo service dot find all todos. Okay, this returns a list of todo responses. Good. Okay, let's do assertions dot assert equals. So use a todos dot size. It should return 3, and we use the responses dot size. So let's run the test case. So here we can see the test case got passed. Okay, so this is similar for other methods in the service. Thanks for watching. If you have any queries, please let me know in the comment section. Please like, share and subscribe the channel. Thank you.